You pay $15 for a movie ticket, find your seat, and settle in. 30 minutes later, you realize the film is absolutely terrible. Your immediate instinct is to sit there and suffer through the remaining 90 minutes. After all, you already paid for the ticket. Leaving now feels like throwing that money directly into the trash. This diagram shows the math. Leaving costs $15. Staying costs $15 plus 2 hours of free time. Economists call this a sunk cost, an unrecoverable expense already paid. Logically, it should have zero influence on future decisions. Yet we constantly let these unrecoverable costs dictate our actions. We throw good money after bad, honor dead investments, and double down on mistakes. It happens so frequently that behavioral economists gave it a specific name, the sunk cost fallacy. This glitch in human logic scales up far beyond a bad night at the movies. The exact same mental trap that keeps you in an uncomfortable theater seat routinely bankrupts massive corporations, ruins professional careers, and drains national treasuries. If we operated like pure calculators, walking away from a losing bet would be easy, but our brains are highly emotional engines, carrying psychological baggage that makes cutting our losses feel physically painful. A major driver of this is loss aversion, a concept developed by psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. Kahneman was a Nobel Prize-winning behavioral economist who proved that the human brain feels the pain of losing something about twice as intensely as the joy of gaining something equal. Stopping a failing project forces us to formally realize a loss, so our brains desperately want to keep going, just to delay that psychological pain. We are also deeply conditioned from early childhood to avoid waste, told to finish our dinner because others are hungry. Combine that noble instinct with commitment bias, our deep-seated social need to appear consistent to others, and changing course suddenly feels exactly like admitting failure. Consider a student who spends thousands of dollars and 4 years earning a law degree, only to realize in their final year that they despise the idea of actually practicing law. The immediate emotional response is to push through. Quitting feels like wasting 4 years of grueling effort and tuition money. But those 4 years and thousands of dollars are gone either way. If they force themselves to take the bar exam and accept a job at a firm, they are choosing to spend the next 40 years of their life in a career they hate, just to honor an unrecoverable bill. When you put individuals with these exact psychological blind spots in charge of national budgets, the scale of the destruction expands exponentially. In the mid-20th century, the British and French governments partnered to build the Concorde supersonic jet. Long before the aircraft was ever finished, the internal financial data made the reality completely obvious. The jet would never be commercially viable. The costs of fuel, maintenance, and noise restrictions meant the plane could never operate at a profit. A rational economic actor would have halted the project immediately. Instead, the two governments looked at the massive amounts of capital they had already sunk into the research and development phases, and they refused to stop. To avoid the immense public embarrassment of admitting a massively expensive mistake, they engaged in a textbook escalation of commitment. They poured billions more into the program, forcing the doomed aircraft through to completion. The Concorde was an incredible engineering feat, capable of crossing the Atlantic in under 3 hours. Yet, as a business venture, it remained a complete financial black hole, operating at a massive loss for decades until its eventual retirement. The overwhelming desire to justify a past expense caused two major world powers to burn billions of taxpayer dollars. The mechanism that kept the Concorde on the assembly line is exactly the same one that keeps a bored moviegoer pinned to their theater seat. Breaking free of this trap requires a deliberate rewiring of how we perceive failure. We have to train our brains to view walking away not as a loss, but as a strategic pivot based on new information. This diagram shows opportunity cost. Every minute or dollar spent rescuing a failing endeavor is actively stolen from a new, successful one. To see choices clearly, use the outsider test. Imagining a friend in your exact position removes emotional baggage, revealing the optimal path. You can also ask yourself a simple, clarifying question. If you were coming into this exact situation fresh today, with zero prior investment, would you choose to start this project? If the answer is no, the only logical move is to stop. Your past decisions and the resources you spent on them act as the cost of entry to your present moment. They bought you the data and the experience you have right now. Those past investments must never dictate your future actions. Sometimes the most rational, profitable move you can possibly make is to simply acknowledge the math, get up, and walk out of the theater.